Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and today we're going to be talking about our favorite subjects. That's right, blockchain and a little bit of decentralized finance or DeFi. Probably going to get into a little bit of fintech as well, as there's so much happening in this space. We're covering blockchain on a daily basis, and you haven't tuned in already, every single day, blockchain and crypto with your host, Kyle Ellicott. I'm covering what's happening in the industry. You can always check it out, 5 minutes or less. But more importantly, today, State Street, one of the largest banks in the US and one of the oldest, as a fact, is now going to be offering cryptocurrency solutions and services to its clients. Bank of America also just joined the Series D fundraising round for Paxios, the stablecoin environment. We had more news like that as well, including from PayPal, who dropped some exciting tidbits on its Q2 earnings call earlier this week by the CEO, talking about a super app. That's right, a super app focused on crypto, more importantly, in crypto services, providing high yield savings accounts, more purchasing and buying, and more services around the cryptocurrency industry. What does all this mean? But more importantly, we also have conversations around regulation, around stablecoins. The industry itself is shifting and changing, and we're going to talk about that. But a big thank you to the Token team, to Maria and Hasmik for making today's episode possible. If you haven't done so already, check out today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family on the archive at latoken.com. And let's go and jump right into introducing our co-host for today. Keith, welcome back. It's always a pleasure. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Hey, great. Thanks, Kyle. Keith Gillard. I'm CEO of Upper Stage Capital. We are a buyout firm focused on ESG impact. Having said that, my founding partner, Frank Christians, is a very active blockchain crypto investor, and he and I together seeded DeFi Ventures, which is now known as WonderFi, and it's going public next month. He's really the crypto and blockchain expert on our team, but obviously has got me very enthusiastic about it, and I've invested a fair amount of money into the space.
Wonderful. There's a fair amount of places to put money into this space as well, which we're going to be talking about. Everywhere from the digital assets to the companies themselves and more as well in terms of regions. Anuj, welcome back to the show. If you're with us, a little intro, a little background for everybody.
Hey guys, hey Kyle, great seeing you again. So yeah, quickly introducing myself. Startup founder, started 3 startups in the last decade. Presently working as a founder for Yellow Sapphire Technologies, where we work very closely with upcoming fintech organizations and with upcoming neobanks. Very deeply working technology.
We're going to come back to Anuj, everybody. If you haven't heard from Anuj before, he is a regular speaker here at VCTV, absolutely outstanding investor. We're going to come back to him. I know he's having a few technical difficulties, as we all do here in the digital age of 2021, or the metaverse, as the big term goes around the industry. MME, Mr. Mark, welcome to the show. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Oh, Kyle, it's such a pleasure. Mark Muleyberstein out of the Seattle area, angel investor for over a decade in the crypto space, about since 2015, I think. And running an investor group, we're co-managing an investor group called Codex 3. We're all angels and super angels and investing together in the crypto space, both in tokens as well as in equity, always looking for interesting projects, interesting teams, especially that are planning on changing the world. And Kyle, it's always a pleasure talking with you. I just see one comment on Keith's pictures in the background. I did work at HP at one point in my life and lived close to the Bodensee, where they built the Zeppelins that are hanging on your wall behind you. So, okay.
The small world it is, everybody.
It sure is.
I love it. We've got a little bit of everything for you all today on the panel as well. Let's jump right in. Gentlemen, I mean, blockchain, DeFi, what is happening in the world of fintechs? We've got this big conversation right now in the United States and a little bit arguably globally around regulation. And that goes everywhere from digital assets as a general conversation to cryptocurrencies, to central bank digital currencies, to digital dollars or respectful currencies in different countries. What's happening? And how is this impacting the world of venture? Mark, do you want to kick us off on this? Mark, outstanding. I agree with you. There's nothing to be said.
And I found the button. No, I think you mentioned a lot of things that are going on right now, and I think Vitalik in Paris just said it. It's like Ethereum is it's all about the use cases that are built on it, and agreeable. DeFi is the use case that has been built out very intensively over the last years. We have looked again early into that space. Our friends at MakerDAO, seeing the potential that a decentralized finance system can bring for not only the people that have access to the financial system today, but the billions of people that are currently excluded from loans, credits, savings accounts, any kind of financial transaction accounts that are not cash. So there's a huge potential, I think, for broad parts of the global population, but also reducing inefficiencies. I mean, if we're looking at the traditional finance systems, one of the reasons why DeFi is taking off so quickly is really just the existing system is so dramatically inefficient. International wire transfers even taking forever, costing a fortune, while you can do it with blockchain technology much, much faster. So that is all ready for disruption for sure. Are we there yet? No, DeFi is still much too hard and too difficult for many people to use. But we have seen front ends from Aave. I have to plug for one of our companies, CoinStats. They're not only a coin tracker, they are the front end for DeFi, on track to becoming that. So very excited about that, to make it easy for people. And another company, putting a Seattle plug in here, and I highly recommend you get on the waiting list, because Makara offers different buckets for people just on the app to invest. Traditional Bitcoin, Ethereum, even DeFi. No, you cannot sign up yet. But the beta, I'm using it, is working fantastically. Join the waitlist. Makara.com.
Wonderful. Mark, will you drop the link in the chat and we'll share it afterwards as well?
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And mentioning, DeFi on other radars. I mean, I just literally got a tweet coming through from the block, getting into more detail around PayPal's announcement again on that Q2 2021 earnings call, that the CEO mentioned this, future crypto super app or super wallet app that they're going to be releasing, and that decentralized finance and DeFi along with smart contracts are very much on their radar, and how that will play into this app, by the way, that they say is code ready. It's done. It's just waiting to be released in the coming weeks and or months as well. So we'll see how that rolls out for US users first, and then the rest of the globe furthermore. And on DeFi, Keith, you and your partner have looked at the DeFi space. You've seen a few opportunities. You've made a few. And I mean, as investors, I tracked this morning 7 investments. Following that, found 4 more that came out just after the announcement. We're seeing a ton of investment in this space. How has this been as a process for you and your partner, making some of your first investments in some of the companies that play as an infrastructure in this space?
Yeah, it's that point. Infrastructure was what convinced me to really come into this. As I've said on previous shows, up until that point, I didn't understand utility within the crypto space other than for nefarious purposes or to hold value, right? I understand that absolutely has utility too. But what convinced me to really go into this in a big way was that DeFi allows for the marriage of conventional finance with all of the advantages of the crypto space. Using Ethereum, we're able to have transparency. We're able to track all our transactions appropriately and not being tracked by the wrong parties. And it allows us to monetize these assets in ways that previously they were just speculation and holding to see how they grow. So there are multiple utility, multiple qualities, really measurable, valuable attributes that are enabled now by DeFi. That's what got me very excited to invest in the space. And obviously, I'm not the only one. Right at the beginning of this year, we had only $18 billion in assets being held within DeFi, which is still a lot, and that was very exciting. But now we're approaching $100 billion, right? We're probably going to see almost a tenfold increase over the course of 2021 as people recognize the utility here. That's incredible. And for me, having got in on a deal that moved very quickly from a seed to a pre-IPO round and is now going public, the increase in value and the speed at which this is moving just tells me that absolutely I got in at the right time in the right way.
I mean, I couldn't agree more on the pace, and I'm reading this a little out of context. I haven't had a chance to dive too deep into the report just for clarity as I'm about to say this stat, but I think it's important to Keith's point is, Crypto.com and a few others released a report earlier today about the amount of crypto users at the end of June, which is when this data point was collected, and that they had identified 220 million crypto users on a global scale at the end of June. So while, global population, we're pushing 7 billion. That's a small fraction. That's still a very big number for such a movement and an industry that's growing so fast. And Mark, you mentioned, how the DeFi or decentralized finance movement is focused on also bringing inclusion to those who may not have access to some of these services. That's a pretty impactful number, I would say. And you've got NYDIG and others that are bringing these services to banks in the U.S. To provide more. Again, PayPal, we've talked about MasterCard and Visa previously, both who are rolling out new infrastructure companies. Where do we go from here? Where are some of these opportunities that you're kind of looking at in your crystal ball, if you will, Mark, on where the industry goes?
Yeah, as passionate as I am about unlocking the economic potential of these billions, I think that one point you mentioned a couple of times, Kyle, is regulation and clarity. And I think a couple of folks have really come to the realization that for the trust of traditional institutions, but also of the broad masses, we need to have clearer regulations of what to do and how to do it and to be compliant. And I know most of the companies we're working with, this is one of our key goals, always trying what's the compliance requirements, how do I fulfill what's necessary. It was a big goal for Coinbase, and that's why they're so successful from the very beginning. They're not scouting the line, but they're very, very clearly focusing on regulatory compliance. And I think we will see it. I'm still dumbfounded every day about Tether, but I'm probably not the only one wondering what's going on there. And crystal ball, I think something not so good will happen eventually, and it might disturb the markets for a little bit, but I think the markets will survive. Blockchain and crypto will survive even if Tether does not.
Yeah, and I love the crystal ball. We need to get those for all the VCTV alumni speakers. Little crystal ball or 8-ball to predict what's coming next. But I'm with you, Keith. Any thoughts on where we go from here, and maybe even how blockchain or DeFi, respectfully, are playing a role in some of the things you're looking at on the impact side? As well. And I know we've had a lot of debate in the industry around mining and also around consensus mechanisms and how that plays a role into climate change along with energy usage. But, kind of taking a step aside from that and looking at how does blockchain play a role or provide growth into some of the investments you're looking at on the impact side?
Sure. Well, I'm very excited about opportunities in supply chain. And blockchain fits into that so well. It gives us transparency and accountability throughout the supply chain. Until very recently, it was almost impossible in many industries to really know the provenance of everything that went into a product, particularly a complex product that has a lot of components, and each one of those components is subcomponents, and then there are raw materials that feed into that. And where do they come from? Are they treating their environment correctly? Are they treating their workers correctly, etc.? Well, blockchain allows us to have that kind of transparency. It's not, of course, implemented everywhere. And a lot of suppliers still are a black hole, where they get their things from, how they make it, etc. But blockchain is changing that, and we're seeing that adopted on an accelerating pace. And I'm very excited about that from a supply chain basis. Not only are we able to stand behind the products that we put out there in the market, stand behind our marketing, our brand, our values, but also we're able to have much more resilient supply chains because of this. We're able to get second sources that are not provided by the same primary raw material providers that are, we saw that in the lockdown last year, where you would have your second source also get shut down at the same time as your primary source, because you didn't know they were being provided by the same provider earlier in that supply chain. So this gives us real visibility, allows us to identify true bottlenecks, and then to develop solutions to not just work around them, but to come up with more resilient systems that will have transparency and better value and less parasitic losses throughout. So I'm a big believer in blockchain for its impact on supply chain, and that has an impact on CO2 emissions as well as social issues around the world.
Yeah, let me just jump in there. I mean, one of the things I've learned recently, which was that electricity can only be distributed or transported over about 500 miles relatively efficiently. You have, on one side, yes, there's energy shortages in a lot of places, but where energy is produced or could be produced, you can really, it's so far remote, you don't necessarily makes economic sense to transport the electricity somewhere else, to a place where it could be used. Bitcoin mining, or mining in general of cryptocurrency, can play a huge role there. And it provides, because of course when you mine it, you can have an internet connection, you can save that energy and create value for a global network, and therefore empower the particular areas where that's happening. We're looking at, of course, hydro, of course, for sure, even in remote places of the world. But one of the problems that I wasn't aware of is oil mining rigs, small oil mining rigs in Texas. Yes, they mine a lot of oil, but what they also do is they flare. All the gas that is coming out is getting flared and burned and going into the atmosphere. It's a huge pollution issue. Well, we could stop all the oil mining. That's one way. But if we don't do that and we still want the oil from Texas, can we do something useful with the gas? And I think mining is a good alternative there. And that's one of the other projects we're looking at with one of our partners there.
And speaking of that,
if I can just interject on that.
Please go ahead.
I love that, to take waste products that honestly they can't really do anything with that gas. They're not going to put in all of the capex necessary to capture that gas, to store that gas, to deal with it. That gas has very low value and is constantly being generated. And by the way, if they didn't light it on fire, it's mostly methane, which is 20 times more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. So they are actually doing the responsible thing by burning it, rather than to just let it invisibly go into the atmosphere. Even though for most people, that it going invisibly into the atmosphere seems like it's better, it's far worse for us. So they are doing the right thing by flaring this gas. But if you could come up with a way to provide a much higher value for them than the low value energy that is inherent in the gas, and you could turn that into data, you could turn that into something truly valuable, or to run a process that generates things of value, then it will be worthwhile for those companies to put in that capex. You can incentivize them, you can create value while improving our environment. And I love that.
That is super helpful. Thank you, Keith. I really appreciate it. That's great additional information. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to throw in there, I mean, Mark, you were speaking words to what I heard yesterday around a great podcast with Marty Bent and Anthony Pompliano, or Pomp, about the efforts around great American mining, and they actually do just that and work with those oil and refineries to capture that access and use that to do Bitcoin mining and others as well. So it sounds like there's some great companies out there, much more, but I did hear a good conversation around this, and thank you, Mark, for bringing that up, and Keith to add on more of this, because why not reuse where we can, as we've discussed before. And gentlemen, I want to come for closing thoughts, and in your closing thoughts today, I previewed this with you both, a book recommendation. What book do you recommend out there for those to check out and read? Can be on any topic, whether it's Bitcoin, DeFi, or otherwise on blockchain. But Mark, let's kick it off with you. Closing thoughts about where we go from here in the DeFi space, decentralized finance. Book rec, and where can you be found?
Okay, let's make sure. So where do we go? I think with all the excitement that is going on, we are still at the very, very beginning. I think it's, yes, we're in the blockchain and crypto space. We're excited about all the cool things that have happened over the last 5, 10, 20, 15 years by now, not even 15 years. But we are still at the very, very beginning. I think there's lots of opportunities, lots of inefficiencies in traditional systems that can be optimized. I think for the betterment of humankind, to be not be over dramatic, but I think we will see a lot of these things happening. Economic potential improved, energy usage improved. I think there's a lot of these things that are going to happen. I'm very positive over the next 10 years of what's happening in our space. You asked me for books. I mean, of course, I have to plug the one book that I wrote about that topic at CES, the must-read, CES 2019, the must-read book on blockchain for blockchain investors. The trust technology. But after 2 years, come on, it's a little outdated, right? But what I'm really looking forward to, though, is Laura Shin's book. I really love her podcast, Unchained, and she wrote a book, so I'm definitely going to check that one out.
Very nice. Thank you very much. Great recommendation. And I also will shamelessly also plug your book. Even though it's 2 years, you should still check it out. And also make sure you follow Mark, if you haven't already, on Twitter as well. He's got the best signage in the game, ladies and gentlemen. So definitely make sure you follow him, if anything, to give him credit for the amazing signage and effort he puts into it every week.
Absolutely. That's total vintage now. A year and a half of LA Token TV. Boom.
we should get you to sign it, and we should NFT it. Put it out into the world. Winner gets a book of yours, also autographed. Just throwing it out there.
Hey, you're hired as a marketing agent.
There you go. All right. Before we sign the papers, Keith, to you, closing thoughts, book rec, and where can you be found?
Right. Well, right now I'm reading Values by Mark Carney. Mark is an economist who I believe is the only person in history to have been the director of 2 countries' central banks. He directed both the Central Bank of Canada and of the UK. Anyway, fantastic book that marries up not only the whole fiat world. He at the beginning of the book kind of goes through a very rapid history of economics and how we've continued to make improvements in efficiencies and understandings there. And he gets into crypto, but also he marries that up with our values about protecting human dignity and the environment that we live in. So a very interesting book to sort of marry up what we talked about today, the interface between DeFi, crypto, blockchain, and the environment and the impact that investors such as myself are trying to make. You can find me, upperstage.capital is the URL, or you can follow me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from anybody out there who's interested in what we're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Keith. And also thank you, Mark, as well, for your thoughts and insights on where we go from here and what's happening in the decentralized finance or greater blockchain ecosystem as well. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you click like, share, and subscribe for today's episode. To hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family, please sure to check us out on letoken.com as well. Please do reach out to each and every one of us. As Keith and Mark mentioned, we'd all love to hear what you're building, what you're working on, and what you're looking at as well. Do share your thoughts and insights with us furthermore. But when you do reach out, add context, where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. And with that, everyone, a big thank you to the LeToken team. Maria, and Hasbik for making today's episode possible. Big thank you. We'll see you back here tomorrow with more VC TV. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye.